James Gunn is quickly becoming one of the most popular directors amongst the geek sphere. So, with Superman out in theaters now today, marking his 7th film, I thought it would be the perfect time to stop and rank all 7 of James Gunn's films. Hi, my name's Zach, and today we're ranking James Gunn's movies. Before we get started, like many of you, I started this YouTube channel because I cannot watch a movie without needing to talk about it afterwards. And if that sounds like you, you're in the right place. Consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, I want this to be a conversation between me and you, so comment down below your ranking and opinion and thoughts on all of James Gunn's films. Give me some context in there. When you first started to notice James Gunn, what was the first film of his you saw? I would love to see your story. With all that out of the way, let's kick this off with my number 6. Nope, my number 7. In last place, Slither. This is James Gunn's first feature film, and it is a homage to a bunch of horror films from the 80s that he grew up watching. It's a creature feature, body invasion type movie, and it is disgusting. I watched this film for the very first time last month on my lunch break. I highly do not recommend eating food around this movie. The effects and all of the gore and the gross things that come out of people in this movie is so wildly disgusting. But if you're into that type of thing, it's also a lot of fun. And Gunn does not leave out the levity in this film. There's still a bunch of James Gunn humor infused into the script, while also clearly being this tongue-in-cheek type film that is supposed to be a love letter to what he grew up loving, all the freaky stuff that he grew up loving. You got Nathan Fillion in here. You've got Elizabeth Banks in here. The cast in here, Michael Rooker is in here. It's a great cast. It's a really strong debut from James Gunn. It's very different. It's a big departure from the types of movies you might expect from James Gunn today, mostly being comic book movies. But as a first feature film from Gunn, it is very well done. It is full of gnarly practical effects. There is so many great prosthetics being applied to people throughout the entire film to make them turn into these gross, bloated, blob-type creatures and monsters. It's not my cup of tea, but I can acknowledge it's pretty well done. At number 6, we've got Super. And if you wanted to take a deep dive into James Gunn's brain, I'm pretty sure Super is the movie to allow you to do that. This movie is so absurdly mean-spirited and super inappropriate when it comes to the jokes. Gunn holds nothing back. He is out there to offend everybody he possibly can. And on more than a few occasions, I myself did feel offended watching this movie. But that's also weirdly the charm of this movie. James Gunn is out there to offend everybody, and therefore everybody being under attack allows this to be a really funny movie. I laughed out loud so many times while watching this film. Rainn Wilson in here playing this vigilante who's out there to stop crime, stopping Kevin Bacon from stealing his girlfriend. Gunn sets it in a real world environment. It's basically like Kick-Ass, but a lot more realistic than Kick-Ass, where there is no fantastical elements really applied into this film. When Rainn Wilson goes around and hits people on the head with a wrench, you feel the impact of the violence on these people. It feels mean. It feels mean to laugh at it. And it's one of those movies that for a lot of people, it would just be an instant turnoff because it can just be way too much and go way too far with some of its jokes, some of its visuals, and some of the things that occur in this movie. I don't think James Gunn would get away with putting in a film today. But for me, I laughed out loud numerous times. I honestly got into the story. I think it's pretty clever taking the Kick-Ass route, but I honestly think it did the Kick-Ass route a little bit better and more dedicated to the story than even Kick-Ass did. So this is not a film for everybody. At times, it's not really even a film for me, but it is unhinged and unrelentlessly James Gunn, and I admire it in that respect. Kicking off our top 5, we've got Superman, and this is, of course, the latest film from James Gunn now that he is CEO over there at DC Studios. This is the kickoff to his universe. He's directing it. He casted it. And when it comes to the cast in this film, I think James Gunn did a great job casting across the board. Every single person that's in this film embodies their characters to a T. They are, for me, what kind of carry the film overall. The action in here is pretty fun. Gunn definitely knows how to make an entertaining film, but I also feel that this is probably Gunn's sloppiest work when it comes to the script, where it just feels like he cram-packed it with a lot of ideas and characters and places he wants to go and things that he wanted to see in a Superman film. He just kind of threw everything and the kitchen sink into it. And for me, that caused for a plot that kind of felt all over the place at times to me. He doesn't hold back from going full comic book with this film. And for that, he throws out some outlandish ideas, outlandish visuals, and just places where this film goes, and he doesn't hold your hand. He doesn't prepare you for it. He just lets you experience it. And at times that really did work for me, and at other times I found myself being pulled out of the movie because it just got a little bit too weird, too fast for me. But I can totally acknowledge this is a very entertaining film. I myself was very entertained. I do like this film. I just feel like it has a lot more shortcomings than I personally wanted it to have. It could go up, it could go down on further rewatches. At the moment, I've only seen the film once, but that's where I land with Superman on this list at the moment. I still think it's good, it's just not great. From there, we move on to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and this is another Gunn film where I'm kind of in the minority when it comes to the majority of this movie. I personally think that this movie succeeds the most at being a send-off for James Gunn from the MCU. It's clear that in this movie, he's wrapping up the story that he's set off to tell back in 2014. He gives each and every character in this film a very satisfying conclusion to his storytelling of their stories. Of course, this movie tackles the origin of Rocket and gets the most deep and personal with the character than we've ever gotten to be with him in the MCU. And all of that stuff in this movie I feel works tremendously well. But at the same time, all the other things going on in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with the cast of Guardians going out trying to save Rocket, at times it does kind of feel like a point A to point B type storytelling. I feel like the jokes in here do fall the flattest of all of the Guardians films. There's a couple characters in here that, because this is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's got kind of the curse of being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where things happened in a previous movie that the director might not have wanted to happen for his movie, and that's the case here with Gamora, where it's pretty clear that James Gunn did not plan or want Gamora to be killed off in Infinity War, and now they've got a replacement Gamora from another timeline that Gunn has to wedge into the film and figure out how she works so Zoe Saldana can end the trilogy with the rest of her castmates. And for me, that was the hardest wedge that's in this film, and I do think that Gunn had a little bit of a struggle to figure out how to make it work. Eventually, he does make it work. I think he ends the character's story at a pretty satisfying place, just like the rest of the characters. But I can't help but wonder what Gunn really wanted to happen with this character had the MCU not killed her off in Infinity War. In that way, this feels like the most compromised of Gunn's visions in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I still really like this film. I still really enjoy it. But even when I first saw it in theaters, I came out feeling like it was the weakest of the Guardians films. And I still feel that way, unfortunately, today. Which kicks off our top 3 with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And at times, I find that I like this one even more than the first Guardians of the Galaxy. The cast here just feel like they really click into their characters coming off of that first film. I feel like James Gunn's humor in this strikes me the hardest personally. There's so much abundance of jokes in this film that at times it can be a little overwhelmed with jokes, but the majority of the jokes in here make me laugh. So while I'm laughing, I'm having a really great time with this film. Another thing I really like about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is while it's not super heavy story driven, it's very character driven because Gunn goes deep into these characters' insecurities and traumas and pasts that he brings to light in this film a lot more, where you see how this adopted family of the Guardians of the Galaxy really does bring out the best of every single character in the Guardians of the Galaxy. We get a lot with Yondu and Rocket on a side quest going on with the Ravengers in this film, where I feel like those characters relating to each other bring a lot of heart to the film, as well as the through-line story of fathers and what is a father, and the whole bookend of Yondu and Quill, and how Quill accepts that Yondu was his father all along, the father he was searching for. I think the way that Gunn incorporates that into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is very well done. Kurt Russell in here as Ego the Living Planet. Granted, he doesn't have much to do for the first 2 acts of the film. You could even argue he doesn't have much to do in the 3rd act of the film. But I enjoy Kurt Russell's performance, and I think that he works very well within the story for the themes that James Gunn is trying to tell about fatherhood. I think it's a gorgeous looking film. I love the action sequences. I love the color grading, the color palette in this film. There's a couple of James Gunn mean-spirited moments in here that kind of feel similar to something you'd see in Super that may not work the best in the MCU or even in a Guardians film, but for the majority of this film, this is a Guardians sequel that I was hoping to experience after I watched the first Guardians of the Galaxy back in 2014. Which brings us to our runner-up in Guardians of the Galaxy, the MCU game changer that James Gunn brought in 2014. And it's really funny to think back to when Guardians of the Galaxy was coming out in the landscape of the MCU. The MCU at that point felt like it could do no wrong, and then here comes James Gunn wanting to introduce a talking tree and a talking raccoon in a space opera type film. Everybody was confused. Everybody was scratching their heads. How on earth is this going to work in this grounded, real-world feeling Marvel Cinematic Universe? And then they went out and casted Chris Pratt, who was not a household name by any means. He was on Parks and Rec on, I think it was ABC Primetime TV. You got a wrestler who wasn't really known for acting with Dave Bautista. There was a lot of weird elements that it seemed like this movie was going to be Marvel's first flop. And then the movie came out and just blew everybody away with just how fun and refreshing it was, not only to the MCU, but to the comic book genre, where James Gunn takes the magic that he is able to infuse into ensemble films and just makes you fall in love with this misfit cast of characters. It is so irreverent. It is so funny. James Gunn's humor in this, being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, works so well, while at the same time telling a very compelling story of these misfits in this huge galaxy in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where you've got the Kree Wars going on in the background. It becomes a prison escape film at one point, but at the core of the movie is a story about found family that James Gunn just is able to do so well. He brings colorful characters to the screen, makes you fall in love with them, and he did it for the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and for me personally, because this is my first experience with James Gunn as a filmmaker. This is the very first James Gunn movie I ever saw, and the minute the credits roll, I knew that this was a man who was a director I was going to love for quite some time if he was able to keep this kind of thing up. And, fortunately for us, he was. But that brings me to my personal number one, and that for me is The Suicide Squad. The journey to The Suicide Squad is such a fascinating story for James Gunn, where he was working on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. In fact, he was being set up to be Kevin Feige's second-hand man, kind of controlling and guiding out the cosmic area of the MCU, which in Phase 4 and 5, we've kind of seen they've struggled with, because James Gunn was supposed to be in that spot. But because of resurfaced tweets with a campaign from people on Twitter to get him fired, it worked. Disney let him go. Warner Brothers swooped him up, and eventually he did The Suicide Squad. Then he was able to go back and finish Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy before becoming the head of DC Studios, now Marvel Studios' main competitor. It's a fascinating story, but it all starts here with The Suicide Squad, where Gunn is able to take what the magic that he brought to Guardians of the Galaxy, apply it to these now misfit group of criminals, but in a completely unhinged R-rated James Gunn experience. When you watch all of James Gunn's films back to back like I did this past month, and you get to the Suicide Squad, this is like everything that James Gunn has done has built up to, where it's got the crazy violence and at times inappropriate humor that Super has. It's got some body horror elements like from Sinister when it comes to Starro. It's got the found family type theme going on in here like Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's very much a comic book movie also like Super and Guardians of the Galaxy. But James Gunn is able to just go full on Gunn with this film, where it is filled with his unfiltered sense of humor, his unfiltered irreverence and love for the comic book movie genre. He also brings so much likability to these otherwise unlikable characters. The rivalry going on throughout this entire movie between Peacemaker and Bloodsport is some of my favorite parts of the entire movie, and leads to the darkest joke in the film as well, when they kill the camp of rebels that they actually are going to be fighting with. When that reveal happened in the theater, I lost my mind laughing. It was so funny. They take a character from Suicide Squad 2016, a failed movie, in Harley Quinn, and they elevate her and make her even better and more of a threatening presence in this film than you saw in 2016. And the film lives up to the name of The Suicide Squad, where James Gunn was smart enough to throw in red herrings of heroes so that when people get killed off in this film, it feels like any one of our Suicide Squad main characters can go at any moment. It's a film where you can tell that James Gunn poured everything he had into it because he truly believed his career was going to be over after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and everything at Disney fell apart due to the resurfaced tweets. This was his redemption. This was his second chance. He took it. He ran with it. And in my opinion, he created his most entertaining and most James Gunn film he's ever made. And for that reason, at the moment, The Suicide Squad comes in for me as my number one favorite James Gunn movie. Share your ranking of James Gunn's movies down below in the comment section. Be sure to check out my review for Superman, and also right down there I've got some more director ranking videos that you can check out in that playlist. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't just watch movies, talk movies, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.